Hi. So on the first part of this video series, we talked about some of the things that a buyer's agent supports their client with for the first 3 or 4 steps of the home buying process. So in this one, we're going to continue that, and we're going to talk about the things that buyers may not be aware of until later in the process, about things that their agent is doing for them, supporting them based on the agent's knowledge and experience. So we left off with talking about prepping a contract, but let's talk now about negotiating that contract and doing it in a way that benefits the buyer. So after the offer is submitted, after your offer is submitted to the seller's agent, because usually they're working with an agent, um, we enter a negotiation phase, and um, so we're negotiating here. We're talking about the terms of the contract, and it's not just price. And our goal is to reach a mutual agreement between the buyer and the seller so that we can get to a stage that we call quote unquote under contract. And that's where we have written agreement between the buyer and seller on the terms of the sale. But some of the things that go into this stage are really best handled or facilitated by the agents. So as the buyer's agent, part of my job is to discover what the seller's motivations are, what their required time frame is, what they may compromise on, and other details that can give you as the buyer an advantage in the bargaining, in the negotiation process. Um, because I've helped about 250 buyers, and me and my wife have worked with about 500 different clients, buyers and sellers, over the last 15 or 20 years. We know how to ask these questions, we know what to ask, and we know what to focus on. Um, if uh, if you want to submit an offer that's below list price, and that would hopefully be based on other similar homes that have recently sold, I'm going to be able to provide you with facts about other similar homes that have sold in the area and market data supporting that lower price. Simply submitting an offer 5% below list price and saying, well, I never pay list price, or um, well, this is what someone told me to do when buying a home, that's, I'll be honest, that's just your opinion. And if all the other homes in the neighborhood have been selling at 1% under list price, or maybe 1% over list price, then we're going to have to present some facts and data to support why you believe an offer 5% below is beneficial for the seller to accept when their agent and they believe that their home is worth 5% more. So there's also the likely scenario that, we're still in a competitive market, and there are specific strategies to use when writing an offer and when communicating that offer to the seller or the seller's agent. I've spent many years um, writing competitive offers for my clients that are able to win. There are certain things that you want to put in, certain strategies to employ that can help you win when you're competing against other buyers. Also, we want to submit a complete offer when you submit the contract. So there's about 7, 8, 9, 10 other forms that are required by Colorado state law that go along with the contract. I want to work with you to ensure all of them are signed, they're correct, and they're submitted on time for you. Um, and they're not just submitted to the seller's agent, but also to the lender and the title company. So by submitting a complete offer with all the other forms that are necessary, we communicate to the seller and the seller's agent that we're professional, we know what we're doing. Um, we want to make this a smooth process, and that we are um, that we're professionals and easy to work with. We're not pushovers in negotiations. I'm saying we understand how this process works, and we're presenting all the information that the seller needs in order to accept the offer um, that has been presented to them. So it facilitates the process. So um, let's assume now that the seller's accepted your offer. Now we're, quote, under contract. And um, now we go through this is the important part of the home buying process. And from here, it can take 30 to 45 days to actually close or complete the transaction or the purchase. One of the biggest and most important steps that happens next is the property inspection and due diligence period. So this is a phase where you are learning about the condition of the house and other aspects of the house that help you make an informed decision about whether to continue with the purchase process or not. So a big part of my job as your buyer's agent is to ensure that all the information about the property that's available is shared with you on time, including things like work permits, if there was damage to the home that was previously, even if it was previously repaired, if there are things like roof warranties, lots of other information about the property. Okay. I know to ask for these things, and I know to include them in the contract or in the inspection process. Also, I know two or three inspectors that I've worked with for many years. I also know inspectors that I've worked with that don't do a good job, and I don't recommend them anymore. So um, I'm always going to recommend inspectors that not only really know what they're doing, but they're not going to be alarmist. They're not going to um, make a bigger deal about something that's wrong with the house that doesn't need to be worried about. They're not going to hide things, but they're not going to over exaggerate existing problems. They're going to be factual and level headed about it. Also, um, inspectors are generalists. They don't know. They're not licensed plumbers, electricians, roofers. So if the inspector reports something or I see something that doesn't look right, I'm going to put up a red flag and say, hey, we really need to bring in a professional, a licensed pro in this specific field to get a better opinion on this. And I'll be able to recommend licensed contractors for you that can get their review of the potential problem done in time so that it doesn't interfere with your ability to terminate the contract if we suddenly discover that there's some kind of a deal killer problem with the house. Um, so I'm also going to alert you to discrepancies between what the property looks like and what we see when we're there, and tax records and building records and work permits. I have easy access to information in any county about work permits and construction permits that were either opened and not closed, which means the final inspection wasn't done, or opened and closed. So by seeing these discrepancies, these are things that could indicate amateur or do-it-yourself repairs, unpermitted work, or unapproved additions or alterations to the house. These are things you want to know about. It's important to know. If it wasn't done right, it may not be stable. It may not be done to code, or worst case, it may not be safe. Um, I've seen um, I've seen repairs done that were not discovered until after the home was purchased, and it cost the buyer a lot of money when the county found out or the city found out that there was something done incorrectly. I've also done investigations for clients during the inspection period where I was able to find out that tens of thousands of work that had been permitted but not completed hadn't been completed and hadn't received the final sign off by the county building inspector. And I saved my buyer tens of thousands of dollars of work that the county would have um, required to be done had they found out about it later on. So those costs were covered by the seller, and my buyer did not have to worry about that. We made sure we extended deadlines and we got the work done, and that was on the seller's dime. There is a way to request repairs and work to be done to the property that does not offend the seller. Um, Sellers are usually they feel a personal connection with their house, and we never want to present repair requests in a way that's going to insult them about the condition of their property. They're probably proud of their house and the way they personalized it, but there's ways to communicate things that doesn't insult them. We don't want to create an adversarial kind of um, negotiation. We want it to be smooth and agreeable as much as possible. So there's also a way to write up the repair agreement. So XYZ are going to be fixed and it's going to be done this way by this person by this date. And we always write up these repair requests to ensure that if it should be done by a licensed pro, it is done by a licensed pro. Um, and also, there are ways to write these things up, these repairs up, these repair agreements that don't necessarily trigger your lender to demand additional work um, or details about the repair. Um, the lender is not an expert, and the underwriters working for the lender are not experts in home condition. We don't need to engage them or have them scrutinizing certain things if it's unnecessary. And lastly, a big part of my job is to watch the dates and deadlines, those milestones I talked about in the first episode. Those milestones are there for your benefit. And if we find something that is, like I said, a deal killer, something about the condition of the property that is an absolute no-go, you don't want to continue with the deal, or it's going to be too costly to fix, then we can terminate the deal. We can terminate your purchase agreement by the deadline and ensure that you get your earnest money back. Big part of my job is protecting your earnest money deposit. So we'll continue on the next part 3 with the next steps. Thanks.